Oh, look out now. It's the Bourbon and Banter Podcast, the most honest podcast in all of bourbon. That's right, friends and neighbors. We've got everything you need to drink curious right here. This is your source for straight up, no BS commentary on the bourbon world. So sit back, grab a pour, and check your feelings at the door because we're here to lay it out for you as only Bourbon and Banter can. And now your hosts, coming fresh from the kitchen where they finally perfected the mint julep by creating it in donut form. The minty, sugary morsels of the bourbon world, here they are.
Well, you know, Bob, I'm glad we took the time to create that donut because really, let's face it, that's about the only way that I can really commit to having mint juleps on a regular basis.
It's really good too. It's not. Hold on a sec. Wow. I don't want to talk my mouth full.
You got a little bit on your goatee. I mean, like the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. I can see in the reflection in the camera there that I've got a little mint jelly on the goatee there, but it makes for a good conditioning product as well. So, that's something. You get your donuts, and those of us that have got facial hair like this, we know that we're not going to get all that donut in our mouth. Half it's going to wind up on us. So,
ain't that the truth?
This is a good. We're making a donut that serves multiple different purposes. In addition to making you happy with the donut goodness, give you a little bit of conditioning for your facial hair. So,
well, as they say, we are doing the Lord's work each and every day. Amen.
There you go.
Well, it's good to catch up with you again, my friend. And to all of our listeners out there, we do apologize. We are a few days late getting this podcast out. But what can we say? We were drunk.
Well,
a lot.
That and we were developing these donuts. And I'll just tell you, maybe overshare. But if you're going to be developing a donut like this, you got to eat that much. You're going to spend a lot more time in the bathroom than typically. So really, that's what.
All right, moving on.
Sorry, folks. That's just the truth right here. I got a case of Charmin next to me. It's halfway gone now.
And he's taking orders. If anybody needs to stock up and still can't get their own supply, Bob will hook you up. Real quick. We hope everybody enjoyed last month's podcast, which definitely went down as our quote unquote most honest podcast ever. And obviously, or I should say, hopefully everyone got in on the joke and realized that just about everything in that episode was fabricated, if they will, a joke.
It was.
A little fun. That's right, Bob.
We made that shit up. I thought it was all real.
Nope.
Sounded real to me.
That's right. Well, we're good. What can you say? But there was one true story, and for those of you who listened, we appreciate it. But most importantly, we had said that there was one true story, and if you could identify it, let us know. Send us an email. And we had several people who responded and sent in their guesses. And I'm very excited to announce that we had 3 individuals who guessed correctly. And that was a story that we featured about a man who was looking for a bottle of Blanton's with a dump date that was going to match the date that his wife was going to have a cesarean section. They actually wanted to schedule the cesarean for a date when a bottle would be dumped. So actually they were looking to the future and to say, what dates do they dump on? We're going to schedule it for that. Now, Bob's, hypothesis was that despite the guy saying his wife was in on this, she probably wasn't. But
no, there's no way she was in on this. And I think we need to call attention to this right now, just because we talked about it last episode, but I'm going to reiterate how fucking stupid an idea this was on this month's episode, just in case somebody didn't hear it last month. It's the dumbest damn thing I've heard.
Well, 3 people guessed correctly that was the true story among all the other fabulous stories that could have been true, but they weren't. So thanks to those individuals for listening and writing in. We've got some nice bourbon swag. We'll be heading out your way shortly. And hey, if we get these donuts figured out and Bob doesn't eat them all, maybe we'll send you one of the mint julep donuts as well. You never know. But, something nice for the fans coming out soon.
What was interesting, though, in all the responses that we got trying to guess this thing, the most popular response that everybody thought was true was Freddie and Fanny's fabulously fruity frappes. That's the one that everybody could have sworn.
That would have been the most fun. Hey,
yeah,
you know what?
Yeah.
Jefferson's
the Fanny's fabulously fresh fruits down there in Frankfurt with Freddie is really what folks were hoping was true. And I'm sorry, folks, that wasn't it.
Well, I really think we have a chance of being an innovator, Bob, because, we did the story about Jefferson's cranberry, right? And they're like, hey, we need to try to make this happen. Cleveland's Thanksgiving whiskey, and the master distiller, tweeted back to us and said, I'm going to make this happen because I think this is awesome. So maybe, hey, who knows? Maybe Buffalo Trace doesn't listen to anybody. Never mind, moving on. All right.
Hey, maybe if it was the legal firm of Bourbon and Banter, then they'd listen to it.
Right, exactly. Speaking of hard to get or highly sought after barrels and bottles, just a reminder that Bourbon and Banter now has a single barrel club. We launched this several weeks ago, shortly after we went down to Kentucky and picked 6 barrels. I'm glad to say that we had a huge response, but there are still plenty of slots available. So if you want to get in on priority access to buy our single barrels when they come available in market, head on over to patreon.com/bourbonbanter and sign up there to get access. We have a couple more that are going to be announced here shortly. So we're now up to 8 that will be released this year, and more info will be coming out. So make sure you're on our regular email list. And lastly, we are testing something out kind of new. If you are a Patreon member already, you are part of this. But we have rolled out an alpha test of a new Bourbon and Banter online community. Bob and I are, both of like minds that we really have grown tired of a lot of the bourbon communities out there. They've gotten so huge, so crowded. There's a lot of bullying, thread shitting, generally just bad behavior on there. Not to mention that I'm really not a big fan of Facebook. And if I can take something off of Facebook and create something that we own as a community and can operate the way we want to operate, all the better. So we've launched the Bourbon and Banter community. It's in alpha testing right now. So if you are interested and you're not a Patreon member, drop us an email at podcast@bourbonbanter.com. Express an interest. We'll get back to you with some information, see if you're a good fit. And hopefully one day soon you'll be able to join us and help us build out a community that we all will enjoy and we want to spend time in, and will allow us to meet a lot of new friends.
Now, us saying that, they've gotten so big, that's not a problem if all the folks in there know what the hell they're talking about and it's a positive experience. But what tends to happen is these things are so overrun with folks who are just pains in the ass. And I don't need to see crotch shots of, Weller Special Reserve. I don't need all that shit. So that's what we're talking about, because I can hear some, little angry dude or woman or whoever saying, oh, you guys are just pissed off because everybody's on board now. No, that's not why we're pissed off. We're pissed off for the same reason we're always pissed off: the stupidity of the public. But the folks who listen to this show are clearly not in that realm. So there we go.
You guys are a lot of years ahead. No, we're looking for quality over quantity. I think that's the best way to sum it up. And it's also a great way to interact with all of the Bourbon and Banter team in an environment where we're going to be honest. We're going to have a lot of fun. And that's what it's really about. It's a place to have fun. You can learn a lot as well. But it's a place to be non-judgmental and try new things and share your opinions. And it's primarily bourbon, but we get into other whiskeys and we'll talk about just about anything. But this is a chance to really help us shape what that community will offer. So let us know if you're interested. That said, I think it's time to dive into some of the most recent news of the world as it pertains to whiskey. All right, so first up, this one kind of caught me off guard the other day. Budweiser China signs agreement to bring Fireball whiskey to China for new premium alcohol occasions. Holy fuck, there's so much wrong with that headline.
I'm looking. Fireball whiskey to China for new premium alcohol occasion.
Well, you have Budweiser, okay? And you have to remember it's not just a distillery, it's a distribution angle, right? Then Fireball whiskey to China. I don't know. For some reason, I thought it was already there. And then they're calling it new premium alcohol occasions. Once again, the proof that marketing can accomplish anything, because Fireball is not a premium whiskey. And they're not calling it a premium whiskey, but they're calling it premium occasion. So, which just shows how the Chinese culture is different and how they approach stuff. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And obviously that's going to open up huge market opportunity for Buffalo Trace because, they need the money. And then Buffalo Trace happened to put out just the other day announcement about how they're progressing to build all of these rick houses, and they're continuing to build one. I think it's every 3 to 4 months for the foreseeable future, 58,000 barrels per rick house, yada, yada, yada. And I realized it suddenly hit me. Everyone's been so excited. They've got all these rick houses, and it's like someday soon, we're no longer going to have to deal with allocation on Buffalo Trace or E.H. Taylor, that those things are going to be plentiful. Well, I'm sorry. It's to make Fireball for China.
Yeah, that's bullshit. They're still going to be holding back all the shit that everybody wants. Trust me, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And this is probably one of those. So what they can say 500,000 barrels, and they're going to increase capacity by 500,000 barrels. Okay, yeah.
I mean,
go ahead. You're still going to be having 300 people line up in front of a Total Wine for a small batch E.H. Taylor on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m.
Well, when you
maybe we should sell them some mint julep donuts.
When you think about how big the Chinese market really is, and I think that's hard for people to comprehend, how big that is, and if Fireball gains traction, which I'm sure it will, right? Because I'm not a big fan of Fireball, just because I'm not a big fan of that type of flavored whiskey. However, if you drink it, it's not bad. It doesn't make me sick or anything like that. So it has a place, it has a market, and if it gains traction there, like it has in the U.S., they're going to need a shit ton of whiskey to be able to make that product. And that's going to use up a ton of that. And that whiskey doesn't have to be that old, right? So they're going to quick turn that stuff. So for those of you holding out hope for, big days of Buffalo Tracer in every corner and E.H. Taylor available whenever you want it, and Blanton's for miles and miles in the U.S. market, I'm a little dubious that this expansion is going to do it, especially with an announcement like this. I mean, it's great for their business; they can do what they want. But when it comes to our drinkers, I'm not really sure how this is going to help us. So we'll take stock of this and see what happens. But there is a silver lining. I think if we can get the Chinese consumers addicted to Fireball, we just may have a chance to regain some of the product power we've given them over the last couple decades. And maybe we can take their economy down a notch, right? Just get them addicted to it just enough, and then, boom, change the fucking formula or change the proof. It fucks with us, so it should fuck with them.
They won't notice. They'll just shoot it. They'll be fine. They ain't going to notice.
So the other thing that I've seen coming about, there's been a lot of discussion, is how the pandemic has changed marketing and spirit access. And there was an article that came out and talked about how direct-to-consumer channel has become a marketing vehicle for craft spirits. And the article goes on about how the pandemic has changed a lot of rules, right? Certain states have allowed people to sell directly from distilleries to consumers in their state. Kentucky's allowed it to be shipped out of state. Restaurants allowed to have drinks to go. So there's a lot of changes that have been accelerated to a very sort of rigid and stagnant three-tier system that's been around since Prohibition. And even though there was a survey recently put out that said most consumers in the United States are happy with the three-tier system, I imagine that survey was sponsored by the distributors of the world, there's been a lot of changes. And it's really been a lifeline for craft distillers in that they've been able to go to direct to consumers, because now they can sell without having as much extended distribution. They're able to introduce people through some interesting offerings. So it's more of just a question, a temp check with our listeners to say, hey, have you ordered directly from a distillery this year? Or have you been exposed to and started drinking a brand because of their marketing efforts in the direct-to-consumer channel? And I'd love to get your feedback, so drop us a note at podcast@bourbonbanter.com and let us know how these changes have affected your drinking and whether or not they've been able to expand your horizons on what you're putting in your glass on a regular basis. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, it's a way to get mediocre whiskey faster, so you don't have to go through the distributor. You just go right to the distillery or source, and there you go. So let's be curious to know, if people are able to make that judgment call on that less than stellar bottle before they used to.
Well, that's a great point. It's a little it's a sting for some of these places, but we believe in drink curious. So it's about getting access and having the option to drink it. And then you have to decide, right? Is it good or it's bad? Because we all know that a lot of craft stuff isn't necessarily ready for prime time, but let us know what you see. And then to Bob's point, was it good? Was it bad? And tell us everything you think we should know, and we'll talk about it on the next podcast. Direct from the files of, no shit, AAA put out a report recently, and the headline was Risky Driving Behaviors of Drivers Who Use Alcohol and Marijuana. So the bottom line on this is that they did the study and found out that people who are drunk and high are more dangerous when they're behind the wheel. Bob, is that shocking to you?
It took a study to determine that. They actually went out and did a study to determine that fact. I could have told you that. Give me the $25,000 for the in-depth study, and I'll tell you, that in a matter of seconds.
Well, apparently the study was done with people who drink and drive and are high. So these people actually honor. So when I look at this and it says, that speeding on residential streets, people who combine drinking with marijuana use are 55% of them are going to speed versus alcohol only 35%. So you got some really honest people when they're drunk and they're high going on with this. But this is really kind of like a no shit moment, right? So really the takeaway from us is, if Elon Musk was listening to the last episode where we talked about his self-driving cars for the Kentucky Trail, that shit cannot get here soon enough, right? Because people cannot be trusted to be smart when it comes to this shit. So if they're already drinking drunk, now they're going to be smoking, they're going to be high. It's just going to get worse. So stay safe out there, people, and make sure if you're entertaining your family, friends, whatever, keep a leash on them, right? We want to see you guys around for a long time.
You said people can't be trusted to be smart with this. I just would have taken off the with this. People can't be trusted to be smart. I think that's been proven on a regular basis. So this just adds and compounds that.
Well, we're still in the spring. We're at the beginning of spring. I'm trying to remain optimistic here for everybody involved, Bob. Check back with me by June.
That makes one of us.
Temperatures are in the 90s, and I'll have no sympathy for anything. So it also looks like that the pandemic has continued to empower brands who are trying to artificially age whiskey. There was a study, another article that came out, quotes, "Whiskey world at war as tech allows spirits to be aged instantly." God, I want to be a headline writer. Of course, everything I submit would be censored.
Is this stuff going to start? It's the taster's choice of whiskey.
Well, they start the article by saying, and I quote, "In H.G. Wells' 1901 short story, The New Accelerator, a scientist invents a potion that enables anyone who drinks it to move through time considerably faster than normal, traveling long distances in what others perceive as just a fraction of a second." It's what it is. It's a story. It's fiction, right? Yet people are still trying to pursue this whole concept of how can we instantly age whiskey and bring a full flavored product to market in a fraction of the time and therefore a fraction of the cost. Now, those of you who have listened to us for a while, several episodes. Again, Bob and I imbibed with some products from Lost Spirits in California, and we're not impressed for the most part. We did have a very brave organization reach out to us just recently, actually, by the name of Bespoken Spirits, who also accelerate aging of whiskeys, and they have said, "Hey, we'd like to be on the podcast." So either they're extremely brave and cool, and I like that, or their PR person didn't actually listen to our podcast and just pitched us.
I'm going to say it's probably the latter, yeah.
But she seemed pretty cool as well, and basically she said, "Hey, let me send you some samples and try them out, and then let's have a call, let's have a conversation, and then we'll see where we go." So Bob and I are going to do that. We got the samples last week. I'm going to get them to Bob in his hazmat suit, and we're going to try them, and then we're going to have a call, and hopefully soon we'll have them on the podcast, and it should be a very interesting conversation because I like the science idea of being able to do this, but no one has pulled it off, and we'll see if these samples get us any closer to a viable product.
Are we going to do these blind with them on the call?
No, we're going to take this straight for the call. We're going to be fair. Once we get to the podcast, who the hell knows what's going to happen?
I mean, that would be really interesting if they're on there while we're tasting this stuff. Of course, they may bomb our houses or something like that. But
no, they're brave enough to come to us. We'll be cool. But we'll be honest too, right? So if it's not working, it's not working, and that's that. But I'm really kind of curious to see where they think this product fits, right? Because as we talked about last time, is people that were releasing these weren't necessarily delivering them at a price point that says, if this tasted just as good, I would go for this product, right? So we shall see. But Bob and I are going to take one for the team. And if you don't hear episode 15, which will be the follow-up to this podcast, you'll know that it was deadly. Right.
Yeah, you say we're taking one for the team. I don't remember saying I would do that. I'm just told, hey, we're taking one for the team. So Pops has committed me to take one for the team with him. So it's his fault if it happens.
Yeah, well, you'll be fine, Bob. I'll bring you donuts. I'll bring you some donuts.
There you go.
All right, so
it's easy to pull one over on a fat guy. What can I say?
takes one to know one, right?
There you go.
Well, speaking of fat guys, I don't know. That was a really piss poor transition. But let's talk about pissing in the wind. Bob and I have no fear. Okay, we have no fear. We will not only drink hyper-aged fake whiskey, but we will also continue to bash on South Africa. That's right, folks. The most recent article, illicit trade thrives as South Africa bans alcohol and tobacco sales. We could have filed this under dud, no shit. But really, I think when I read this, a great quote, I think it was from Interstellar that's lodged in my brain, is that time is a flat circle, meaning that we don't learn from our own history. And what I mean is that apparently now, based on their ban of alcohol and tobacco during the pandemic, that couple things. The 15% of the South African alcohol market is now illicit or run by organized crime. And that's costing them a loss of around $445 million US dollars. Okay, so just think about that. They're doing that. And the other thing to know, and I kept reading these articles and I was kind of like, why is this on the news so much? And then I've come to learn that South Africa ranks 6th, okay, in the world by alcohol consumed per drinker. And you're like, okay, that doesn't, okay, fine, all right, that's a lot of liquor. But then it gets worse when you realize that only 1/3 of adult South Africans are actually drinking.
Oh, wow.
So
they're putting it away.
They're putting it away. They're causing problems. And I guess when COVID first hit, they'd actually put some rules in the taverns because drunken behavior at taverns were an issue. They were actually putting some stuff in place that was getting under control because people were going to the taverns to drink. Once they banned it and closed all the taverns, it started happening outside, right? And going to the illicit channels out there. So they're not learning from like our country's, prohibition and other countries' prohibition, that this is not something you can just ban and not expect illegal markets to come out of, people to get killed, people to be consuming products that are dangerous. So we don't care if they're going to come after us and, for defamation or whatever it was. I threw the paper away, shredded it from their lawyers. But we're going to continue on because it's important to know that these guys have got to learn that when you make something illegal like this, you're just creating more problems. And apparently they're not alone with this whole problem, especially when it comes to tobacco. There was a study done a couple of years ago that 7.8% of the global cigarette market was illicit. And it was costing the global governments $40 billion in tax revenue. So I think people need to wise up and figure out a way to loosen these strings a little bit and have a little bit more control over what's going on. I think ultimately it'll be safer for everybody, and the governments have a little bit more money to play with, which is always appreciated by them. So if you are in South Africa by chance and listening to this podcast, because obviously some of you are, and by the way, thanks for the statue. That was a nice touch. Drop us a note at podcast@bourbonbanter.com and give us a little bit more color on this and let us know what the fuck is really going on. And we may send you a nice surprise gift that will not be illegal. So now, Bob, taking a little bit longer to do this podcast, your sources have been working overtime, and I'm really, really excited about this one because it's like a twofer, right? Something that was actually announced and now the follow-up story. So I'm gonna turn it over to you to explode this one onto the scene, so to speak.
Well, when I first saw it, I was shocked. So recently, Costco announced that they're going to start offering 3 new sourced bourbon expressions to customers in 2021. This year, they are bringing additional sourced products to their shelves because everybody's familiar with the Kirkland bourbon, the Kirkland small batch, which is from Tennessee. It was previously from Kentucky. Everybody thought it was Beam, and now it's from Tennessee. Gee, I wonder where that's from. But the new thing, however, is that the new expressions that they're bringing out are being co-branded in partnership with the source distillery, which is going to be Barton, 1792. So the labeling on it clearly states that it's Kirkland signature by Barton, 1792. So it's right on the front of the label. I have not seen that before, Pops. I'm not sure about you, but and seeing something of this wide of a release where they're saying where it's coming from, just flat out like that. But it's going to include a small batch Kentucky bourbon, a bottled and bond straight bourbon, Kentucky straight bourbon, and a single barrel Kentucky straight bourbon. The single barrel is going to be bottled at 120 proof. So I'm actually very interested to see that. It wasn't a surprise when the news of this co-branding partnership broke late in January, just because Kirkland has always sourced their stuff. But what was surprising and not to be outdone is that we have recently learned through our network of spies and insiders that Sam's Club is not far behind Costco with a similar co-branded bourbon partnership of their own. So the Arkansas-based club is rumored to have partnered with alcohol behemoth Diageo to rebrand their in-house Members Mark bourbon as Walton's Reserve by Bulleit. So in a move that is contrary to the Walton's family legacy of driving down per costs to a unit cost per unit to a point where, only the store makes money, they've chosen to partner with a brand that is currently sourcing from another distillery. So I was shocked, instead of partnering with a distillery like Barton that makes their own whiskey, so now they're double sourcing. And it's hard for us to fathom how, they're going to make money on a deal like this, but maybe it's a way that Diageo can put the Bulleit juice into a source bottle while they're getting their own distillate ready for bottling, because Bulleit's still sourcing stuff, and maybe this is down the line going to pay off for Diageo. But the whiskey selected for Sam's Club bottlings is reported to have gone through multiple assessments to get to the consumer. So I guess double source means twice the evaluation, right? But to avoid pissing off the whiskey nerds, the term double sourced will not be used. Instead, they're going to go with evaluated by whiskey masters with over 100 years of combined experience. I guess that's what's going to be on the label.
Marketing bullshit. Marketing bullshit.
Well, the math on that is calculated by doing the following. So the initial master distiller, wherever this is coming from, has got at least 10 years experience. Plus the panel at Diageo has a combined 40 years of experience. And then Sam's is bringing in their own master taster for the final selection, who has almost 50 years.
God damn, who the hell is that?
Well, I've never heard of this guy, and apparently he's unknown in the whiskey industry, but he's very well known in Bentonville, Arkansas, which is where where Sam's Club is headquartered. Very well known in Bentonville and its surrounding hollers and hills. So apparently all throughout the area there. Guys, Christopher Corny Campbell, that's the guy's name. He's a mainstay at Harry's Hideaway, a local watering hole that has been in operation since before Prohibition in Bentonville. It was originally opened by Harry Henry, the grandson of Hubert Henry, the smoked sausage king of Arkansas. The bar remained open during Prohibition by securing a pharmacy license and filling whiskey prescriptions. So they were one of the ones that were able to do that, and that's how they stayed open during Prohibition. But supported by a legitimate and famed whiskey backstory, Corny Campbell has been seen at the corner bar stool every afternoon at Harry's since 1972, drinking only whiskey whose main grain was corn, hence the nickname. So apparently, Corny's going to pick the barrels for Walton's Reserve from a collection of barrels that didn't make the cut to be bottled as Bulleit. Early reports to us tell us that those present at Corny's first round of barrel sampling indicate that he deemed all the barrels to be delicious and none were turned down for bottling as Walton's Reserve.
Well, that's going to be a sign of quality right there.
There you go. It's Corny's pick. Due to the apparently complex challenge of properly reflecting the whiskey's distilling, aging, and production provenance, has held up label design, so we don't know exactly what the brand label is going to look like, but we expect it to follow a similar co-branding approach that Costco followed with the 1792 co-branding. That is, of course, assuming that there's any room left on the label to mention Bulleit's name once they get the stars and stripes and flags and, eagles and stuff on it from Sam's. But no word on when it's going to hit the shelves. But don't worry, we have no doubt that Sam's will hire the whiskey industry's biggest names to promote and provide medals to their newest expression. So I'm sure they're just going to be, it's going to be the Pappy of Arkansas, I guess. So.
Well, I have no doubt that it's already a triple gold winner. And from all of the whiskey and spirit competitions. And I hope that I hope that Bulleit has more room in their trophy shelf to put these medals, because God knows they've earned it. But this is, I think it's going to have eagles and arrows and stripes and stars, because nothing screams Americana quite like Bentonville, a guy named Corny. And
Corny from Bentonville, Arkansas. But the thing that I'm wondering about is if the Eagles are on the bottle, then is Sazerac going to sue them? So then we're going to have Sazerac versus Sam's, and who knows?
That's true, but maybe they can use like a peregrine falcon instead. And just
something
mix it
like
up.
That. Maybe, or if there's another, maybe they'll put a bear on it or something like that.
Well, I like how, you had the little detail that the panel to Diageo has a combined 40 years of experience. Didn't say whiskey experience. It just said experience.
I'm just going with what I was provided with.
Knowing how they move around their brand managers from one brand to the next, even if they don't drink the actual product, who knows what that's going to bring to bear. But, hey, I think about it. I'm not saying this is a smart move for Sam's. Undoubtedly, this will sell the shit out of it. But when you think about the original distillery producing this whiskey, right? It's like any barrel is going to find a home. Boom, 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 boom. And they don't have to deal with the one-off sales to the smaller brands that are trying to launch a brand and blend shit together and whatnot. Now it's just like sell it off to Diageo, and Diageo will find a fit no matter where the fuck it needs to go. Brilliant marketing.
Well, I'm wondering if this is a way for them to, resell some of those orphan barrels that just didn't quite work out. We've seen all the ones, like the Forged Oak and the Rhetoric and all that kind of stuff. But there was the Ten Commandments one that didn't go over very well when they tried to do that. They had another couple that never quite saw the light of day. You had the Joker, the one that they were doing, and remember after the Card Sharks,
the double package Noah's Oak edition.
Yeah, the Noah's Oak. That I thought that was going to be a big hit, but apparently it was not. No. So it's maybe they're going to find a way to do that as well.
Well, so I'm just going to refer to this as a secondhand bullet moving forward, and be really interesting. I'm sure somebody's going to tweet the label as soon as it gets approved. So I'll be curious to see how they fit all that in there and how they kind of do the wording so they don't get in trouble with the TTB, assuming they're paying attention this week. But hey, man, give your spies an extra donut. We appreciate the intel. And for those of you guys listen, let us know. Obviously, when you get a chance to try the Kirkland stuff when it hits the shelf, we want to hear your feedback on those expressions from Barton 1792. And those of you who prefer Sam's over Costco, when this hits the market, give us the same feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Closing out the news, just real quick, a quick rundown of a couple new releases that have crossed our desk. Once again, not a comprehensive list, but things we think you should know about. So first of all, Catoctin Creek, one of our brand sponsors this past year, has released the Ragnarok Rye in partnership with the band Gwar. It's a 92 proof intergalactic rye whiskey that comes with cast metal collectible bottle toppers featuring each of the 5 members of Gwar. I'm not even going to pronounce their names because I don't know how to pronounce all of those names, but needless to say, this is going to be the next hottest collectible bottle topper next to Blanton's. So if you are a Gwar fan, obviously you're going to want to get a bottle of this. If you're a collecting fan, you're going to want it to get from the toppers. And if you just like a good rye that's different from anything else on the market you can get, you should buy it for that reason, and that should be enough.
Someplace Gene Simmons is pissed off that there's no Kiss whiskey toppers yet.
Oh, just wait.
Gwar beat him to it, yeah.
Just wait. I'm sure he's talking to the same manufacturing facility right now. Knowing Gene, though, he'll just sell the toppers you can put on any whiskey, right? Also, Wonderland Distillery is now putting out a limited edition cask strength whiskey. It's going to be, it's by the time you hear this, it will be in market. It's their second product following the successful launch of their first product. That was really distinct from the press release. It's an individually aged rye, corn, and wheat whiskeys. The blend is expertly crafted by the team, and it should be something you should check out. I think Paul on our team reviewed the original release and liked it, but was wondering what it would be like if it was higher proof. So here's his chance. So he'll be reviewing that shortly. Smith Bowman also is releasing its latest experiment called Cane and Coffee. And this is actually a cane spirit. It's a blend of blackstrap molasses and evaporated cane juice, which was co-fermented with a custom selection of roasted coffee Then additional coffee beans were added to the botanical basket of the still, and the coffee bean essence were vapor extracted into the recovered spirit. It's left to rest in used bourbon barrels, and it's bottled at 90 proof and retails for $29.99 for 375 milliliters, which asks the question, Bob, if you had $30, would you buy a bottle of this or a bottle of Whistle Pig maple syrup?
Oh, maple syrup. Well, I think what I would do with that is take both of them, put them back on the shelf, buy a bottle of 101 and a dozen donuts.
All right, there you go. Hey, this might be good with donuts, though, so I might have to try that. And the last release is, and this just came across our desk this morning, Heaven Hill announced that they have launched a new bourbon distilled at the Evan Williams Experience Distillery down in downtown Louisville, called Square 6. It is a new mash bill, which is 52% corn, 35% rye, and 13% malted barley, which is different from their Evan Williams Elijah Craig mash bill, which is 78, 10, 12. And so this is going to be retailed at the Evan Williams Experience and select retailers, because in Kentucky you have to have it in a retailer as well if you're going to sell it at the distillery, for $89.99, and it's aged for 8 years before being bottled at 95 proof. So new product, new mash bill. Now, what's interesting is the Evan Williams Experience only distills a barrel a day. All right, so this is all experimental, truly small batch types of options are out there. So if you're down in that area and lucky enough to get down and grab a bottle and are willing to part with $90, once again, let us know what you think of this new release, and I'll be curious to see if they then take any feedback from this and produce anything at a larger scale at the main distillery here in the future. So that's all we've got.
I was surprised it's been open 8 years down there, that they've been able to do that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I believe it has. Just over. That's right. Time's flying. Hey guys, that's the news. If you have an interesting story you think we should cover, let us know. Drop us a note at podcast@bourbonbanter.com. We'll take a look. And if we use it, we will send you a piece of Bourbon and Banter swag. Quick update, folks. We are working here real time. We just got an email while recording that the new Heaven Hill Square 6 bourbon from the Evan Williams Bourbon Experience is not actually 8 years old. That was a little bit of a mistake. In their press release, it's actually 5 years old. So we just want to set the record straight. Now, back to the recording. Hey, folks, we really appreciate you tuning in to the Bourbon and Banter podcast. And this week, we want to give special thanks to our newest sponsor, SAP 56.
Most hardcore bourbon drinkers have no interest in flavored whiskey. We scoff at the idea of all that fake crap in our whiskey, which is why SAP 56 Canadian maple whiskey caused us to turn our heads. Blending 100% grade A maple syrup with Canadian whiskey, SAP 56 is a velvety, delicious mingling of classic whiskey flavors and maple goodness that will be at home in any room of your house. In the kitchen, mix in a little with your pancakes. Have some with your bacon, why don't you? If you're in the den, enjoy a snifter after a long day of yelling at kids to get off your lawn. On the patio, mix up a Spritz 56 maple whiskey cocktail by our friend Aaron Petrie and enjoy the peace and quiet that you've earned after getting those kids off your lawn. We at Bourbon and Banter drink curious. We hope you will too. So visit our friends over at sap56.com and enjoy some great Canadian maple whiskey.
All right, folks, you're in for a real treat today. We have a brand new segment with our very own cocktail editor, Erin Petrie, where she's going to talk to us about cocktails, not just how to up your cocktail game with some tips and tricks, but also how to go beyond the classics, right? And what can you be doing to incorporate whiskey in new and innovative ways to not only expand your palate, but those of your guests, and ultimately to help everybody drink curious. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So what do you got for us today, Erin?
Yeah, so it's funny that we're talking about this on the podcast today, because I feel like something is in the air with this question of where does whiskey belong in cocktails? A few people have actually reached out to me to get my thoughts on this. And I feel like in general, people see whiskey as this, like, it's deep, dark, broody. And you can really only feature it in those really spirit-forward drinks. It can only go with bitters or something like sweet vermouth. And it really is just kind of a restrictive alcohol when it comes to cocktails. But that is far beyond what's actually the reality there. Bourbon is such a versatile spirit when it comes to cocktails. It can, yes, absolutely play that deep, dark, broody, leading role in your cocktails, such as an old fashioned or a Manhattan. But it can also be perfect for spring drinking, summer drinking. It's excellent in so many different varieties of cocktails. The great example I'll give you right now is when I did the SAP 56 cocktails. So the first one I did was the whiskey for breakfast, which is really a brunch drink, or it could be a dessert drink. It's rich. It has a bunch of different sweet elements, but it's not too sweet. But it's definitely rich with the milk as well as the whipping cream. But then I also put it in a highball with lemon as well as a little bit of bourbon, and it's perfect in both ways. So that's both a flavored whiskey and bourbon, and it works so beautifully both as a spritz in a highball with, bubbles and citrus. And it works just as well in that richer desserty cocktail.
So tell me a little bit more about SAP 56, because I know a lot of our listeners may not have seen your very, very excellent cocktail videos that feature the product, but give them an idea of what exactly the product is and why it was such a great addition to the cocktail lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, if you have not seen the videos, go over to Bourbon Banter. It's on our Instagram. It's on the website, and it's on our YouTube channel. And so what I did is I took the SAP 56. So what that is, I hate using the term flavored whiskey because I think everybody just thinks of Fireball, which all bad decisions start with Fireball.
Exactly.
It has its place, but not in my house. So SAP 56 infuses premium Canadian whiskey with grade A maple syrup. And because it is that grade A maple syrup, it has that really natural sweetness to it that isn't saccharin. It's not an artificial sweetness. And it also plays off of those more maple, oakier elements in bourbon. So I combined them together because you have the whiskey base of the SAP 56, but it also has that maple sweetness, kiss of maple sweetness, if you will, that I then combined with bourbon because bourbon also has a little bit of that corn sweetness and the woodsier elements from the barrel. And so those two together it's a match made in heaven. And so I wanted to show the different ways that you could play with a whiskey that has a little bit of flavor to it. And I like to think of SAP 56 almost like you would like a liqueur, right? I love finding new ways to twist classics. I'm always doing new versions of Manhattans, old fashions, juleps, smashes, and then also the spritz, which is a type of highball that I did for this particular one. And the nice role that the SAP 56 plays is that it can actually serve in place of your sweetener. So in place of things like sugar or simple syrup. And then it also adds a little bit of proof, a little bit of octane, as well as those earthier flavors. So I really want to try it next in an old fashioned. I think what I'm going to do is actually do half bourbon and half SAP 56, and then just do a kiss, just a teensy bit of my rich, simple syrup, and then play with some of the bitters that I have. So, I have black walnut bitters. I use those black walnut bitters actually in my highball. And I think those would be really lovely in an old fashioned as well with the SAP 56 and bourbon to get a little bit more of those woodsy notes. But then also you have those nice maple syrup notes. I could also use, instead of rich simple syrup as my sweetener in an old fashioned, I could use actual maple syrup. So then it would really enhance that maple syrup undertone of the SAP 56.
Well, that sounds like a great idea. As you were talking, I was thinking, I bet you substituting that into an old fashioned would be delicious. So
I am going to try that tonight, and I will report back, and maybe I'll even post that on the website too, or on our Instagram.
So, I loved how you talk about how, the whole category of flavored whiskey kind of, makes everybody get a little twitchy, especially diehard bourbon and whiskey drinkers. Right. And, I like how the phrasing around SAP 56 talks about it's kind of like infused, right? Because it's trying to make 1 + 1 equal something greater than 2 versus a Fireball, right? Which, while it has its place, it's not in my cabinet. So this is kind of an interesting approach to that. And when you first tried it, I'm kind of curious, was it surprising based on a lot of the other maple flavored products that you've tasted in the market?
Yeah, maple is a tough one, right? You have the really nice, grade A maple syrup that you can, buy at farmers markets or at stores. And that tastes totally different than, Aunt Jemima or whatever sort of corn syrup focused maple extract flavor. So I did like the fact that it doesn't have that saccharine sweetness to it. It's just a kiss of sweetness. I know I said that like 3 times now, but I really think that's the best way to categorize it. It's not overly sweet. It pulls in that natural sweetness. And that's why we all like bourbon in the first place. Over Scotch, for example, it has that natural sweetness from the corn. And with something like SAP 56, you get that natural sweetness from the maple sugar that they then boil down and turn into maple syrup. And I find that corollary really rings true. We like bourbon because it does have that sweetness to it, and it's not added sweetness. So when you get into like the honey liqueurs, that's where, and I'm talking about like American honey and I think there's Jack honey, that those have that, it just tastes artificial. It's not real honey. Now, if you added honey into, for example, a cocktail, you would have a totally different experience. It wouldn't taste artificial. And so I think that's why SAP 56, it really, it pushes itself into its own category.
Right.
Like you said, it's infused. So the flavor is there to enhance the flavor of the whiskey, as well as really bring that maple flavor forward without being too sweet and without being artificial tasting.
Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, I think it's definitely something that people should try with, everything else with the spring coming up, right? And, obviously people are getting eager to get outside, reconnect, as people get vaccinated and whatnot. What is one major tip? If you could give one tip to people as they're looking to get outside and share cocktails, what's your one kind of pro tip to help make everyone's life a little easier as they look to bring cocktails into the limited gatherings that they're going to start having?
So batching cocktails is super easy. And you can do that with the highball that I did, like the Spritz 56, that's easy to do. What you would do is you would batch all of the ingredients together, except for your soda water, batch all of that together. And then people can pour it out into their own glass. And then you can give everyone their own, can or bottle of either the ginger beer. So I used Fever Tree ginger beer in that one, but you could also use regular soda water or whatever sort of ginger ale you like. And everyone gets their own can, right? So that you still have less interaction between people, but you're still sharing a really nice drink. And you can also even take that batching. You don't even have to do it in a pitcher. You could do it in individual bottles. A lot of places are doing those cocktails to go. So if you guys ever seen the even like the little Capri Sun, adult Capri Sun pouches, that's a good option for that. Or even just glass bottles that you can pre-batch or put it in a mason jar, right? Just pop it in a mason jar, give everybody their mason jar. That's a great little gift too.
Yeah.
If you can just batch a mason jar, give them a bottle or two of ginger beer or ginger ale and toss a couple lemon wedges in there. That's a great little gift. And it's a great way for people to keep that distance, but still have a great time and share something you're excited to drink.
Wow. Well, that's an excellent tip. Thank you so much. And really appreciate you joining today and kind of talking through some of your tips and ideas. SAP 56 is a sponsor of Bourbon and Banter, so we want to thank them for their patronage. But if you're interested in learning more about SAP 56 and the cocktails that Aaron referenced, or simply want to up your cocktail game, you've got to check out the series called It's 5 O'Clock Here that Aaron does for us. Head over to youtube.com/bourbon banter. It's right there on the page. You'll land there. Click on that. She's got a ton of cocktail videos and does a simply amazing job of educating and walking you through those. And it will brighten your day up. So if you haven't checked those out, please do. Make sure to drop some comments in the section on those, because Aaron will respond to all of those. And Aaron, we look forward to having you back on some future editions as well, as we kind of teach people to drink curious through cocktails.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, it's time for the craft shoot. Yep, that's right. It's the craft shoot, where Bob and I put our lives on the line each and every podcast, trying a new craft distillery whiskey without the benefit of knowing what the hell it is. That's right. My lovely wife, a while ago, took a whole bunch of samples, labeled them, blinded them for us, and each episode we open one up and taste it and give you our thoughts and our feelings before unveiling what that whiskey is. So without further ado, let's dive in. Bob, you've been nosing that for about 10 seconds. What are you getting on that nose?
Yeah, I'm trying to get past that ethanol, and I'm having a hard time doing it.
Ethanol, she was a nice girl, but I really liked her sister better.
I can't get past it, man. This is some very gaseous whiskey.
Well, I'll give you the professional tasting tip. Blow into your whiskey glass to disperse the ethanol. Well, I'll tell you what.
Very faint.
I think there's a lot of notes in this. It leads off for me with the old traditional rubber hosing, rubber tubing.
Yep.
Got some dusty young oak. And then, interesting enough, some of the darker fruit flavors, plums, raisins. And speaking of dark, this shit is so incredibly dark in the glass. It is unbelievable. And the legs are extremely thick. So
yeah, it's almost black.
I mean, if I had commented just on the color and the legs, I'd get real excited. But the nose, it's a little weird. I mean,
it's like the Crocs that I have sitting in front of the door to go outside and take the dogs out, that they've been sitting there in the sun for,
you still
12
sniffing
hours.
them on a regular basis? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to stop doing that. Okay, go ahead and taste it. Let's get it over with. Silence. Well, you didn't spit it out. That's a good sign.
I got some very vitamin stuff on the back of the palate.
So I'm getting some oak, very bitter oak, some really, really rough spice, some hotness from that. Just those two there unbalanced. There's a little bit of, I think, sweetness behind it. Oh, but man, it's bitter. Holy crap. There's some vanilla and some of those dark fruit sugars trying to pop out for me, but man, this thing is bitter, and
it is it's very bitter, very on the back end. It's like I'm chewing on a bark, some type of bark.
Yeah, it's all tannins, all spice.
Yeah.
And the finish
not that hot to me. I don't,
No, it's not like a hot. It's like a really sharp rye, but without the aftertaste of rye, which I enjoy. Like if you're drinking like a Indiana rye. So this is, this has got raw and unbalanced written on it as if it was a really young whiskey. But the color on it is, unbelievable. This is like a 10-year plus darkness on this whiskey.
Perhaps it was aged in a barrel that was coated by bicycle tires, and that's how this happened.
Or in a petroleum can. All right. Well, let's kill the suspense, shall we? Let's open it up. All right. This is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It's a barrel pick, interestingly enough, from Green River Distilling Company. This comes in at 3 years and 9 months, so it is young. It's 117 proof. And the thing to note about this is the Green River Distilling Company is the rebranded name of O.Z. Tyler, which if you are a bourbon nerd like the rest of us, you'll know that O.Z. Tyler is the distillery run by TerraPure, the folks who help accelerate the aging of whiskeys. But in looking at the notes, we can confirm that this whiskey has not partaken in that process. So this is just a natural, organically distilled whiskey. How the hell it's got this extremely dark color to it beats the shit out of me.
I added a little bit of water, and it took away some of that really harsh, oakiness and tannins on the end of it, and brought a little bit of the fruit, the dark fruit forward. But it killed it more than anything. I don't know that it was.
All right. Well, I'll add a little bit in here just for the hell of it. I know I normally don't do that, but it may call for it.
I haven't done it hardly that much in the last year. So I just do it when I get something like this that I just really can't quite get on board with, just to see if it makes any difference.
Adding some water made it a little perfumey for me. Brings out a lot of molasses, almost like burnt molasses on the nose. You know what this kind of reminds me of a little, but not as intense, is that rum we had from Lost Spirits, which is an artificially aged product, right? So They're saying here the Terra Pure process wasn't used for this, which I'm going to take them at their word. But I don't know why this whiskey is so dark at under 4 years old. That's something I'm going to ask a master distiller, someone that I trust, to find out. So, all right. So interesting whiskey, young, still unbalanced in my opinion. Bottle, bar, or bust for you, Bob?
There's nothing that would make me want to go back and pull that. So I guess it's a bust.
Yeah, it's a bust for me as well.
Now let me ask, what's the price on it?
Because this was a barrel pick, I don't know if that's going to be available. No, I'm not seeing anything here in my quick Googling. But it was a barrel pick, so this is a single barrel. So, who knows how this would work with some blending and some proofing down. I think a couple more years and this could be interesting. But I'm telling you, I really want to get into why it's so dark. They say nothing funny going on with this, but I've never seen anything quite like this. So anyway, folks, there you go. OZ Tyler rebranded as Green River Distilling Company, and this is one of their own distillates put out. 3 years, 9 months, 117 proof. It's 70% Kentucky corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley. So I would say this is a bust as it is right now, but as they add a couple of years in this and bring some balance into it, it could be something to look at because the mouthfeel and the thickness of it is interesting. And obviously we love the proof, but we think this needs a little bit more balance to be brought to it. And hopefully a little bit more time in the barrel may bring that to it. So hope they keep up the good work and keep us in the loop. But that's it for the craft shoot. If you have a brand you think we need to be checking out, send us a note and we can add it into our blind rotation. All right, folks, it's time for America's favorite podcast segment. That's right. It's time for some bourbon bullshit. Bob, you ready for some bullshit?
I'm always ready for some bullshit.
Well, you know what? I would tell people if there's ever somebody built for bullshit, it's Bob Bennett.
Well, I really don't know what to say to that. I really don't know.
Well, in that case, why don't you go ahead and give us your most recent bullshit thought?
So I'm watching the television there, and it's a WrestleMania weekend, I think. And I'm watching Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions, his interview show. He had Chris Jericho on, and they start to do shots. Now Jericho's drinking vodka, which immediately I'm like, I lost the respect, maybe some of the respect that I had for Jericho when he's doing that. But Steve's like, well, let's do a shot. And Steve goes down, and what does he pull out? He pulls out a bottle of fucking Blanton's.
Nothing like a flex. On. Nice flex.
Come on, Rattlesnake. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Blanton's is not what I expect Stone Cold to be pulling out. I expect Stone Cold to be pulling out like Wild Turkey Rare Breed or some shit like that, or something, a tried and true legendary American whiskey, not whatever tater bait is going around now that nobody can fucking find. And so here's Stone Cold drinking fucking Blanton's and shooting it. I was like, God damn it. This is just going to give all of the, fucking wrestling morons, and which I guess I'm one if I'm watching it, and the whiskey morons something like, oh, well, Stone Cold's drinking Blanton's. Well, let's get the Stone Cold bottle. Let's just come on, fucking knock it off.
Well, Blanton's is like the new flex. Right, I have to tell you this. It's nothing to do with him, but my wife sends me every once in a while listings from like Realtor.com of houses that she likes, right? And she sent me this one actually in the St. Louis area, and they had a photo of the basement and they had a wine room, but in the wine room was probably 70 or 80 bottles of whiskey. And as I zoomed in on the photo, right, because I had to, the guy literally had like 40 bottles of Blanton's, not to mention E.H. Taylor and all this other shit. And I was like, okay, can I buy that house and negotiate in the wine cellar? Because I'd be all over that. But it's like Blanton's is the new flex. And as we know, shouldn't be, right? People, there are better options.
Imagine if the respect that he would have garnered if he'd have had a bottle of Evan Williams Bottle and Bond.
Oh, huge.
Pulled that out.
Huge.
Would have gotten huge respect.
Right.
And would have been highly accessible for everybody to go and buy a bottle for $15. But no, he's got to pull out the fucking.
Then again, if he was drinking that, maybe we wouldn't be able to get it. So.
Well, that's possible, but
right.
Shit.
Okay. Well, no. All right. So some negative points for Steve there. He's got to up his game, and if you haven't already, you probably have. You've probably tweeted at him and raised issues.
He doesn't give a shit who I am.
I know, but still, though, I get entertainment from you going after these guys. I think you should invite the Iron Sheik to take a few jabs at him because of that.
I tried to get the Iron Sheik to take a few jabs. What I need to do for that is I need to find a way to just trash on Hogan, and the Iron Sheik will jump all over it.
Oh, there you go. All right.
The jabroni Hogan.
There you go. Well, all right. So please, no more Blanton's flexing is what we're hoping for there. To the north of the border, we have a little bit of problem this week that I want to call out with our Canadian friends. And this is not new news, but it's popping up in the feeds again, is this whole thing about Crown Royal Peach. And I just sit here and I have to say, what the fuck? Now, once again, full admission, in my earlier days, when I got out of college and was actually had a job and bought a house and had a little bit of money, I drank Crown Royal. I drank it with Crown and Coke before I got into my before I found my true religion of bourbon, right? I drank it and it was fine. Not as good as it was 20 years ago, apparently, but it was fine. And that's that. But now all these flavors have come out with Crown Royal, right? But peach has gone apeshit. It's harder to get than many coveted. Hell, I think it may be harder to get than Blanton's in many cases. And people go absolutely shit crazy over this. And I don't get it. So I want somebody to email me at podcast@bourbonbanter.com and explain to me why. Okay, because if I want something that's peach flavored, I'm just going to go with peach flavored iced tea. So somebody explain this. Bob, do you have any insight into this for me?
I have no insight into this because I like you out of college, drank Crown Royal, and I would drink it straight or I drink it with 7. I used to drink Crown Special Reserve neat. My father, for years, because at that time, Crown was, the top of the blended whiskey market when you're talking about back in the 70s and 80s. And so Crown Royal had a special place for him. It was a splurge item for him at that time. So it did have a very special place for me based upon my father drinking it. But all the crap that I have seen, and now I'm walking in and I'm seeing the frickin' cocktails in the little cans, the Crown Peach cocktails, the Crown Apple cocktails. It's like, how about Crown? And Crown is water now. It's terrible. Just regular Crown Royal. I'd like to see Crown Royal make a whiskey flavored whiskey to begin with, instead of just a peach, this horse shit. But I can't figure it out.
All right. So
there's nothing that explains it other than this trend of all of this fruit flavored crap that is bombarding the market, whether it be seltzer or cider or whatever other kind of horse shit. That stuff has gone way out of control. And so Crown is piggybacking off of that because I don't know, are they doing shots with Kool-Aid or something? Well, what are the kids drinking these days? I have no freaking idea.
Well, I mean, Crown has been rolling out flavors for years, right? They've been doing different ones. And this one has obviously gone apeshit crazy. But let's just ground people. Once again, right? Drink what you want. Enjoy it. Know what you're drinking. So first of all, Crown Royal Peach is not whiskey. It is 70 proof. It is not whiskey. Okay. Whiskey by definition has to be 80 proof or higher. So this is a whiskey flavored liqueur, whatever you want to call it. And if you like it, that's great. But once again, liking something isn't the issue. The issue is the fact that people go ape shit over it, right? I like Coca-Cola, right? I don't go ape shit crazy over it or whatnot. It's just this manufacturer stuff, which is crazy, which is going to bring us to our next topic here in a minute. But here's the thing. Crown Royal, I think, is taking a page out of Buffalo Trace's playbook. And they are releasing this product, and they are artificially controlling the distribution of it to make it a rare product. Because if you think about all the people that are going to come in the store looking for peach, and they can't get it, they're going to buy something else, right? and they're going to probably buy something else from Crown. So once again, I'm more upset on the fact that there's blatant manipulation on availability, because Crown isn't something that has to be aged for 1 million years to make this product. This is a Fireball-esque product, right? So the fact that there's allocation issues is 100% manufacturer, in my opinion, and that is what drives me nuts. And for those of you who kill for this product, so be it. But if you get any loyalty points for buying this, send them my way. I want to buy something that's a little bit more my speed.
The last thing I'll say about peaches, if I'm going to drink something with peaches, I'm going to drink the incredible peach brandy that the folks from the Big O put out, Habondia,
yes,
a couple of years ago. And I still have some of that. And I'm hoping that comes back around here. So, and when it does, we'll let you know. But that stuff was freaking fantastic.
Well, I'm going to give you a summer challenge. If you like peaches at all, take some fresh peaches, slice them up, and freeze them. Peel them, okay, and freeze them. Cut them into wedges. Then take a glass of bourbon, neat, slide in 1 or 2 of those frozen peaches into your glass, go sit outside on a hot summer day here in St. Louis, and that's cool. It'll chill your whiskey just a little bit, no dilution, and then when you're done, you get an extra bonus if you now have bourbon-soaked peaches to eat. That's a tasty little treat, so a little tip there. All right, so getting back to the bullshit. Sweetens Cove. It's been a topic that we've talked about before. And obviously, the brand has been well received. It's been blended well. But there was an article that came out recently in which someone, and I'm not going to name names, quoted as, it's Tennessee's Pappy. And if my eyes had rolled any harder in my head, they would have fallen out and rolled across the floor and been a plaything for my dog. I mean, here's the thing. Everybody wants to be the next Pappy, right? But calling yourself Tennessee's Pappy, what the fuck? It just annoys, it just really gets under my skin. And maybe I'm overreacting here, but that is nowhere near that, just from a technical perspective as well as a cult status item. So what I would like to have happen is for people who are involved in making the product, stay out of the commentary about what the product is. Let the consumers talk about it. Let the consumers judge it. And that way, people aren't going to read a soundbite and suddenly spend all their waking time pursuing something that at the end of the day, there's a strong chance that it's not going to live up to the hype. So as a public service announcement to people is be careful. Don't fall for the hype. If you ever have a question, Bob and I will be happy to answer it. If you just drop us an email, contact us on social media. We'll hook you up with the honest truth.
And you're not overreacting.
Oh, thank God.
You're not overreacting.
Thank God.
No, because, I mean, what is more annoying than somebody saying, hey, I'm the best in the world. Hey, I am, it's especially when it's not proven and not, there's nothing to base that on. Tennessee Pappy, kiss my ass. I think that somebody needs to pay more attention to making some fucking whiskey than, everything else, surrounding the big top there. So,
well, next thing you know, someone's going to be the Missouri Dickel.
There's a lot of those around here already.
That's right. All right. So last item on the bullshit agenda, Bob, is you've got one here that I think is gonna get people riled up. So just please go for it.
Well, yeah. I was working from home this week. My wife said, hey, they're going to have a thing on fake bourbon on Inside Edition. It was the end of the workday. I turned around to see this. And so apparently Inside Edition sent one of their reporters into Acker Wines in Manhattan in New York City. And they prefaced the story by talking about people who are able to spot fake bourbons and basically talking about the secondary market. He bought $1,000 bottle of bourbon. No, he bought a $70 bottle of bourbon that they priced at $1,000, which was ridiculous. It was a bottle of 4-grain E.H. Taylor. And so it shows the guy going into the store, talking to the salesperson, saying, he needs something special. And the guy hands him this 4-grain talks about, oh, it's really, really rare. You can't find it anymore. You can do this and that. It's like, oh, but it's the real thing. It's absolutely. So it's the real thing. And he even asked him, he says, so don't these come with a tube? He says, oh, yeah, I don't have a tube for that one. And they had also prefaced it by talking about everybody selling empty Pappy bottles, empty E.H. Taylor bottles, all these empty bottles on eBay and other places and Craigslist and things, and just getting them and refilling them and reselling them. So they paid $1,000 for this bottle of 4-grain, and then they took it to Frankfurt, to Buffalo Trace, and Buffalo Trace put it underneath all of their myriad of tests, because while they're not making bourbon, they're spending all their time figuring out how to spot fake products from them. So they determined that obviously it was a fake bottle. There was no lot imprint on the bottle in the back where they do all the E.H. Taylor bottles. The tax strip was upside down on the top of it.
Holy
and the
shit.
Proof, when they put it through the machine, was like 92.5 or something like that. It wasn't bottled and bond proof. It wasn't even 100 proof. So they said, yeah, this is not this bottle of whiskey. This is a fake bottle. So they took it back they tried to take it back to the store and say, hey, we bought this from you last week or whenever it was, and we took it to, and he got the guy working there. He came outside on the sidewalk. They were trying to talk to him, and he ran back in the store. He would not talk to him. So I just, the furious part of, we know this is happening. It's not it's no news to anybody that this is happening, but when you're sitting there clearly and you've caught the guy and you've got proof and you're trying to talk to them, and the guy just runs inside, because your camera crew can't come in, but what's to prevent him from going inside and actually having the conversation with him? They didn't film that if they did it, but I just, people who are listening to this, and people like you and I and the folks who write for us, if we're going to go in someplace and we see an E.H. Taylor bottle with a upside down tax strip on it, we're going to know what's going on.
Right.
But the average, Wall Street CEO idiot, who's paying $1,000 for that bottle, is going to walk in there and not know. And, it's just, so Acker Wines in New York City, on Inside Edition, I wanted to reach out and touch somebody when I saw this.
Well, it brings up an interesting thing, because oftentimes when you get whiskey geeks bitching about things, right? It's about the distillers, right? And artificial allocation, not enough supply, sending things overseas versus keeping them in the U.S. And we want to hold them accountable for all the woes downstream in the retail channel. And then you talk to retailers, and then retailers, liquor stores, they bitch about the distributors, right? And they say, well, I can't get a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle unless I buy, 500 cases of wheat leaf vodka, or I sell enough Fireball. And you hear these stories, and you hear them from a lot of different places, so there's some credibility to them. But then you start seeing, especially over the last 12 to 24 months, right, retailers who have started to prominently display limited availability bottles with increased price tags, right? So Thomas from our team posted a photo from Oregon this week on our Slack channel where the price difference between Weller Reserve, I think it was, and William LaRue Weller was like $40, right? On the retail
that was
shelf.
Crazy. When I saw that, I got the same reaction.
Right. And now, don't get me, you understand this was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for these bottles, right? So retailers have started jacking up things. And there is a school of thought that says, hey, they own the bottle. They bought it from the distributor. They can mark it up and sell it for whatever they want. Okay. And I've talked to Buffalo Trace before, and Buffalo Trace is like, well, they shouldn't do that, but there's really nothing we can do. So you have to file a complaint with your state's attorney general or the Better Business Bureau. Well, whatever. That doesn't do shit. They got bigger fish to fry. I wouldn't expect them to worry about that. So it's like everybody blames someone else for the thing, just like we blame secondary. And if us bourbon drinkers, whiskey drinkers wouldn't buyer in secondary, it wouldn't exist. So ultimately, someone is always to blame. But to see a retailer who is not only charging a shit ton for a bottle, but clearly a fake. And I'm sorry, if a retailer doesn't know a bottle's fake, they need their license pulled. They just do. If they can't tell the difference, which makes me believe that this retailer knew it was a fake. And he was hoping to catch somebody, which is just utter bullshit, which is your whole point of referencing this. But, there are other people who aren't doing fakes, but are doing the same sort of exorbitant pricing out there, right? So there's a prominent, DC retailer, which I won't name, who has bottles on his site for tens of thousands of dollars that I don't know if they actually have them or they know who has them. And so if somebody actually places an order, they will go get them for this, 5-figure sums. But they're also selling Four Roses single barrels that they've picked for $400 or $500. And as well as I do, having been on several Four Roses single barrel picks, the bottles are awesome. And I can see somebody for a charity or something marking them up to 100, 120, right, to raise money. I'm okay with that if there's a reason behind it. But for somebody just grabbing a barrel and saying this is so good it's worth $400 or $500, that's ridiculous. That's unfair to the consumers, and obviously the consumers don't have to buy it. But it's that bad behavior, which is eventually going to turn people's stomachs from dealing with certain people. So, this is a really deep dive into this topic brought up by this, but I think retailers need to be better informed, customers need to be better informed on what they're buying. When they see something that seems too good to be true, such as just availability of a bottle, they need to question it. Take photos, go online, shoot it over to Bourbon Banter. We get some guys who can take a look at it and let you know what we think of it. But more importantly, if you're buying them for that price level, be skeptical. Always ask for a lot of proof, ask for the ability to bring it back, whatever you need to do to feel safe. And it should go without saying, but guys, if you see these Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts out there saying they've got all this highly allocated bourbon, they are scamming you. They are stealing images from legitimate social media folks online. They're saying that they trust them and don't buy from them. There's a lot of them out there. And once again, if you ever have a question, drop us a note. We're glad to help out as much as we can. So bottom line is, folks, if you're paying over 10 to 15% over the MSRP on a bottle, you need to look out for yourself. You need to make sure you're getting a legitimate product. And if people are passing off fakes in the retail channel or being exorbitant, hey, just like you don't have to buy it, okay, because it's their right to sell it for whatever, you have a right to call it out as well. I believe you should form relationships with the people you buy liquor from and look for places that are going to treat their customers right, whether that's taking highly allocated bottles instead of marking them up, releasing them in a lottery, or offering samples to everyone so everybody can get a taste, whatever it may be. And if you have a retailer who you think is doing it right, we want to give them some love. So drop us a note at podcast@bourbonbanter.com with details on who's doing it right, and we'll be glad to call them out and give them a pat on the back and make sure they get some more business from it. But as with everything else, when we see bullshit, we're going to call it out. And we hope that you'll continue to do the same. And if you want to be part of these bullshit discussions in more detail and partake in ones that never make it onto the podcast, head over to patreon.com/bourbonbanter. Join our Patreon, become a sponsor, and get invited to our new Bourbon and Banter community where we can get into all sorts of trouble together without Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram giving a shit about what we do. So, Bob, any parting words on the bullshit?
No. If you see that shit, call it out. Fuck them.
All right. Well, with that said, folks, thank you for listening. This is our 14th episode. We appreciate you taking the time to spend your afternoon, morning, or evening with us, and really hope that you're enjoying the show. But you could do us no better honor than by sharing this podcast with a family member or friends and inviting them to give us a listen, or head over to Apple Podcast and leave us a 5-star review and a comment on what you love about the podcast. So on behalf of Bob and myself, thank you very much. And remember, folks, if you're going to drink curious.
Well, what's your preference? Bourbon, if you got it. Bourbon from Kentucky.
I should certainly fucking hope so.